Howdy, folks, and welcome to the Middle School STEM Teachers Lounge. It is good to have you here live today. It is a Wednesday, as you can tell, because it is live, unless you're watching the playback. And yesterday, I had posted a new video that's actually doing very well, because I think my students are actually watching it more than anybody. I was comparing sixth graders to eighth graders, teaching sixth grade versus teaching eighth grade, and the different differences and similarities that I have actually found between those two grade levels. And you can see a link to the video down in the description if you get a chance to see it after the live stream. But I thought it'd be kind of fun to spend today's live stream sharing more stories from teaching middle school. If you are new here, if you're not familiar with my story, I have been teaching for about 10 years now. My first 3 years were in the fifth grade classroom, and then the rest of the time since then has been in the middle school classroom with a couple of high school classes here and there. Because my campus is a private school, we have middle school and high school on that campus. But it's been fun. I've really enjoyed teaching middle school, and I'm going to continue teaching middle school. I think it's a good age. I think I'm a middle schooler at heart. I still laugh at fart jokes. And I think it's the right fit for me, even though a lot of people are like, teaching middle school, yikes. But it's a lot of fun. So as I was doing this, though, I went back to find a journal. This journal is from, November 1st of 2010 through July 19th, 2011, which actually holds my very first semester of substitute teaching. I was a substitute teacher for about 6 months, the whole semester before my very first semester as a full-time fifth grade teacher. I started teaching fifth grade in the fall of 2011. And there's some stories in here that I've kind of retold a few times since they happened. But I've journaled a lot since I was really in college and a little bit before that time. And I was like, I'm pretty sure I probably journaled about some of my first experiences as a substitute teacher. And it's actually been really fun because now that like years have passed, usually my journals went only a few years back, but now that I've been journaling since high school, and now that I'm 33, I've got wow, I can go back over 10 years and kind of see some of my thoughts on some of these things. And so what I thought we would do today, with the stories that I wanted to share, I'm going to be sharing my very first day in a middle school classroom, as a teacher, as well as a few other moments. There's two stories that I want to share from this journal, which were all both in the first semester of teaching, and as well as one that was still several years ago, teaching teaching middle schoolers in eighth graders, seventh graders. So January 2011. I walked into the classroom as my first teaching job as a substitute teacher. I was in process of becoming a real full-time teacher, but I thought, why don't I try my hand as a substitute teacher, because that'll give me a chance to get in the classroom and to be around kids and to inspire young minds and learn how I can connect with young people. And so my very first day was in Belton ISD, kind of near an hour north of Austin, maybe an hour north of Austin. And I was walking into a school, and I picked up my first subbing job, and it was a middle school, and I was subbing for an eighth grade math class. I remember going to the front desk. I didn't know where this class was, and then they gave me a map of the school, and they said, okay, you're going to go down that hall. It's room 273, and that's where it'll be. And so I was like, okay, I guess maybe my sub plans will be in there. And so I get to the classroom, and there's no sub-plans. I'm looking all over the place for them. The teacher desk has stuff piled high, just books and textbooks and assignments and journals and all sorts of stuff. I'm looking at the board, and it looks like there's there's instructions on the board, but it kind of feels like there were instructions from the class period yesterday. And I start looking around. I'm like, well, maybe that assignment on the board is the assignment they're supposed to be doing. And so after looking around for like 5 minutes, I'm like, maybe there's like an obvious place that I'm supposed to look for subplans that I don't know because I've never done this before. The teacher comes in and she's like, "Oh, hi, we're doing in-service today, and so I just need to come and write the assignment on the board. It's gonna just have them work on the workbook, page 45. They can do problems 2 through 15, and they're great kids. They're just they're just a little bit chatty. And so good luck today, and thanks so much." And then she leaves, and so I was like, "Oh, geez, I don't even know what am I going to be teaching this? Or do I just tell them do the problems?" So I start looking through the workbook and start looking to see like what am I let me see what the content is today. And so I'm like, okay, I'm ready. Kind of nervous. Got the kids coming in. And so the kids come in, and they're like, "Oh, it's a sub. What are we talking about?" And they're pretty excited it's a sub. And I'm like, sit down, please. Sit down, please. And then I start calling roll. And then they're not really listening, but I keep calling roll anyways. And I try to tell them what the assignment is, but some of the students are just talking. So I'm like, well, I guess I'll just keep saying it's like written on the board. Y'all are going to be working on your workbooks. Do y'all know where your workbooks are? Excuse me, do y'all know where your workbooks are? Well, it's going to be page 46. You're going to have to work on problems 2 through 15. So I don't know if y'all are working on inside your own workbooks or on some notebook paper, but that's what you need to work on. And many of them were talking while I was giving the instructions. And then when they were supposed to start, they're like, "What are we supposed to do? I don't get this." And then I remember one girl just wanted to go to the bathroom. I'm like, "You can't go to the bathroom." She's like, "You're not going to let me go to the bathroom?" And then the kids ganged up on me and they're like, you can't like not let her go to the bathroom. Like, she's like, "I'm about to pee my pants. I'm going to go to the bathroom anyway." And so she just leaves and like, "Oh my gosh, she just left and went to the bathroom." And I'm like, I don't know what to do here. And then that class is over. And so in between classes, I'm just like, oh, here I was. I mean, like maybe there's a way that maybe I just need to connect with the kids. Maybe I can just kind of talk to them and just see what they're all about. And like, cause I really love to like, just be a meaningful person in their life, and make a difference, even though I'm only a substitute. And so let's see how the next period goes. And so the next period comes in, and it's kind of a similar story. I remember sitting with one kid and talking to him, and I'm like, hey, how's it going? Like, how do you like school? And just like the naivety, I don't know how to say that word, of thinking I could go in as a substitute and just like change these kids' lives. It didn't work out that way that very first day. I remember on my lunch break, I went to Facebook and I searched for my math teacher from 9th grade. And I said, "Hey, Miss Otot," this is my math teacher. I wasn't friends with her or anything like that. I hadn't talked to her since I was in high school. And I told her, I'm like, "Hey, I just wanted to apologize for being such a jerk in your class when I was in your class in 9th grade. I remember being so disrespectful to you, and I'm so sorry. What's up, UEC? Welcome to Story Time with Tom Gibson. Here I am sharing some stories of teaching middle school. It's good to have you." And I told him, like, right now I'm actually training to be a teacher, and I'm substitute teaching, and it's very difficult. The kids are very, very disrespectful. It's very challenging. And I just wanted to say I'm very sorry now that I'm on the other end of this. And I remember I sent that message, and I was sitting, and it was lunchtime, and I couldn't even eat my lunch. Like, I felt so deflated. I felt so exhausted. It was just lunchtime, but just to have this feeling of like, I have no idea what to do. I'm feeling so disrespected, and the kids are just walking all over me. It was like one of the most draining experiences that I had in the classroom. I remember I got home and then I just like laid down on the couch, like so defeated. And I wanted to read a little bit about those days of teaching. And I said, I've been subbing for about 2 weeks now. And I want to say that I'm making progress, but that I started out hard and it might just get a little bit easier. And I started talking about some of the different classes that I was subbing for. But one of the things that it says, I do know that my confidence in my ability to take control of a class has risen, the children can see that. If you really don't believe that you're the authority, neither will they. So it's so true. Like, if you don't actually believe that you're the authority in the classroom, the students won't either. They can sense that a mile away. And I actually wrote about that class that I just shared, and I said, even with some of the, I tried going through the lesson, but people just weren't paying attention. So they couldn't even do the worksheets. And if I tried explaining to them, everyone else would just get rowdy. I was so tired by the end of the day and just felt so defeated. I guess I was hoping to be good enough to just walk in the first day and manage a classroom, but it's okay. I'll get better. So that was the first day. And I think that was one of the big lessons that I was learning that first day and days after, was you really need to believe that you're the authority. If you're walking in fearful in a classroom, like the kids aren't, no matter what you do, whether you could follow every classroom management strategy that you see online, it's not going to work, because the kids are going to see they don't believe what they're saying and they are scared, and I am not going to take them seriously. Animals can pick up on this. Someone was texting me, and I was talking about this story on the live stream, and she's just like, yeah, that's so true. I'm sure it's true with parents too. And she's not a parent, but I was just like, this is true with animals. If you're a pet, like, can tell like you have no resolve in the thing that you're saying, then it's not going to happen. You know, they're not going to listen to you. And so it's like animals can sense that just innately, and people can sense that. Your own kids can sense that. Students can sense that. There's this level of confidence that needs to be behind the things that you're saying in order for them to be effective. A few months after that, I was long-term subbing, and it was in a pretty rough school. There was fights always breaking out, students yelling profanities in the hallways in the classroom. And I was doing a long-term subbing position for a special ed classroom, a special ed inclusion classroom. But I remember by the end of that special ed long-term sub, it was about 2 weeks left of school, and the principal had developed a little bit of a relationship with me and knew who I was and everything like that. And he said, well, Mr. Gibson, how would you like to take control of the English classroom right down the hall that way for the rest of the year? And the classroom that he was pointing to was a classroom that you could hear about 4 or 5 classes down every day. The management in that classroom just did not exist. It was a teacher. It was his second career, older gentleman, and he was really struggling to manage the 6th grade English class. And I remember that when I was wanting to get a job, and I was like, well, maybe if I do this job and do a good job with it, I could get a job at this school. And so I said, yes, I'll go ahead and take that job. He asked me this during a lunch break. And I remember going back into the classroom, and I almost had a panic attack, because I was like, these kids have had no structure all year. There's literally kids running on top of desks in that class when you walk by. And then you hear the teacher saying, like, y'all sit down. This is gonna be on the test. And like, it's not, do you not, like, no one's gonna sit down because you told them that this is gonna be on the test. And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I've been learning about classroom management, but I don't know how to do this. And so I remember the weekend before that I actually started that class, I researched this thing called whole brain teaching, that was all about how to get how to get the attention of a class and how to get the class engaged. And it was a classroom management system. And I've actually done some videos on like how I used it when I was teaching that class, and how I got the attention of the students when going class. And it was a very, very difficult transition. One story that stuck with me though was a student. I'll call him Angel. And Angel's first day in class, he's yelling out profanities. First day that I was in there, he's yelling out profanities. And so at the end of class, and I tell him he's going to get a referral for having profanity in class. And he's like, "What? I didn't even do anything." And he's cussing when he's saying that. And I remember, I actually want to read that story because he missed class because he was in in-school suspension for a few days. And he said, I gotta come to office hours after class and after school and kind of figure out the things that I had missed. And then this is what that day was like. It was a weird week. I had a really good teaching moment at least. Um, Angel, the kid who I gave a referral to for profanity, walked in after he said, "Yeah, man, I didn't even do anything." I asked him to come in for tutoring after school so I could catch him up on the story that we were reading. He came and we went through the story, and I had some nice heart to heart with him. I asked if he would want to be immortal. We were reading Tuck Everlasting. And he said no, because heaven is better than here. If he were to be immortalized, he would choose to do so at age 20. I asked him what he would be doing at 20, and he said he'd either be cutting hair or playing football. He picked hair cutting because he said it would be easy. After that, I was telling him that he could retake his vocab tests that he missed or that he got a low grade on, but he would have to copy the words down first. And he was pretty resistant and said I should just let him use the worksheet that I gave him. I was going to give him a worksheet with words, but he had to copy down the words, and then he could use the version that he wrote down on his actual test. Kind of a stupid thing. I didn't know what I was doing. Like, why not just give him the worksheet? But the story goes on. I told him that he had to copy it down like everybody else, and he got frustrated and said that he didn't have time and that he would and that he had to go. And then he left angrily and slammed the door. I calmly opened the door and called his name. I calmly asked him why he slammed my door. I'm reflecting back on this, and I was like, man, the fact that I had the resolve to just calmly ask him that question was a pretty good insight, because I think it's very easy in a reactionary tone to be like, you're not supposed to do that. You will respect me. I asked him why he slammed my door, and he said he didn't mean to, and he didn't know that it would slam. I told him that he can't let his emotions take over when he's upset and lose control. He didn't say much, and I told him that I would see him tomorrow. Can I still retake my quiz right now? Yeah, come on in. He kept saying how it was dumb that I made him copy the words when I had so many copies of them and could just give it to him like all the other teachers. Now, I'm also thinking through here that other teachers were probably giving him an accommodation that I wasn't giving him, but the story goes on. I shared how it wasn't about the words. It was about him putting the work into it and then getting the payoff of a 100. He got mad, he threw his pen cap, and then he swore under his breath. Please don't swear in my classroom. You just make me so mad. It was a good tension. Once he realized that those words covered both tests, not only like the words that he had to copy were covering 2 of the tests, not just one, he was a little better about wanting to do it. After about 5 words, though, he got mad and said he couldn't read his own handwriting. The student probably had dyslexia. I told him that he wouldn't have to keep writing, but what does that say? I told him that he wouldn't have to keep writing, but he would only be able to use what notes he had for the quiz. He said, "These are my notes," pointing to the handwriting. I said that if he copied all the words down, then he could use the handout on the test since he put the work in. But he just can't read his handwriting all that well. He agreed to that. So the idea was like, okay, copy all the words, put a little work into this, and then I'll give you the words to actually use. Again, I'm looking back on this, I'm like, that's really stupid. That's not very meaningful. I'm literally just making him do rote copying, which is probably difficult for a student with dyslexia. But in my mind, I was thinking like, okay, I just need him to put some of the work in, and then he can use some of this, use it on his thing. He finally finished copying them, and I gave him the quiz, telling him to take his time because some people would miss 1 or 2 because they were going too fast. He did take his time, and 20 minutes later, he came up to the desk. I graded him, and he got 2 smiling 100s. I always, whenever I put a 100, make a little smiley face out of it. As he put his journal up, I said, "Angel, you're a smart guy, but you're lazy, and you don't want to put the work in. Would you say that's true?" He agreed. And so with that statement, I would think back, like, I probably wouldn't say you're lazy now. I think I would say, like, you don't seem to be wanting to put work into your assignments, as opposed to kind of like labeling him like a lazy kid, like as a kind of like a thing, like saying like you're a dyslexic versus you're a student who has dyslexia, that kind of thing. I think language is important in that way. But he agreed and said that he sometimes doesn't want to put the work in. And I said, well, the work was worth it. You got 2 smiling 100s today. And he gave me a genuine thank you and left. And then he came into the next class today and said, "Hey, Mr. Gibson, that's huge. When you are like subbing or you're like the teacher that everyone thinks they can walk all over, to like just have a student say, "Hey, Mr. Gibson," and acknowledged that. Like, that was such a win. And he even corrected himself when he said, "What the hell?" And he said, "I mean, heck, at least I had that in the midst of a difficult time teaching." And then I kind of go on with that. So the big lesson that I felt I kind of got out of that interaction was like just seeing him come into the next class, seeing him wanting to start doing more work, seeing him wanting to actually respect the boundaries that I had set for him in the classroom. It was one of those things where it's like, wow, like when a student feels seen, when they see that you have high expectations for them, when they experience that, they want to live up to those expectations. Like, okay, like he had a heart-to-heart with me. He actually gave me another opportunity. He saw something in me. He made me put the work in. And he heard me out, and he didn't talk down to me. And he even though I was being disrespectful to him, he didn't respond with disrespect. And he gave me this opportunity to show up. And that was something that I kept with me, that I wanted to continue on in building those relationships with students moving forward from there. Stephen was a student several years ago, a very unpleasant 8th grader. I had Stephen in 6th grade and 7th grade, and 6th grade was great, and 7th grade is kind of like, it's kind of falling, and then 8th grade was just one of those students that was just very, very rude. I remember I would, and disrespectful. I remember I would go around during lunchtime and taking up the phones of students who had them out during lunch because they weren't supposed to have them out, and 8th graders were always wanting to be on their phones during lunch. It's like, oh, let me see your phone. And I remember I took Stephen's up, and he's like, do you just like enjoy taking students' phones or something? Because that seems pretty lame. Like, just like kind of a disrespectful comment. And I remember that at the end of the year, we were having this big assembly, and Stephen was kind of like joking around with his friends. And so I was like, hey, Stephen, why don't you come sit with me? Oh, I get to sit with my best friend, Tom. We're on a first name basis at our school. I'm so excited to sit with my best friend, Tom. And he takes his phone out. He's like, Tom, can we get a selfie together? Because we're like best friends. And I was like, you need to give me your phone. Oh, but we were going to do a selfie together because we're best friends, Tom. Come on, let's do a selfie. And so he continued, and he takes the selfie. And I'm trying not to let it get to me, but I'm getting so frustrated and so angry and feeling like so disrespected. And so I take the phone and we do something at our school called acknowledgements, and students get up and they say an acknowledgement for a teacher or a fellow classmate about like something they appreciate and value. And Stephen gets up and he's like, you know what? I just want to acknowledge someone that we all want to acknowledge here. Tom, you've really just been my rock this year. You've just been such a support. And just like this very sarcastic acknowledgement. And then I was just like, oh, like I was so angry, at the time. And it was the last day of school, and the assembly let out. And he comes back and he's like, can I have my phone, please? And I give him the phone. And it's like, what do you do on the last day of school? Like something like that. Stephen wasn't going to be coming back with us to the next school year. And he crossed over the street, and he wasn't using a crosswalk, which the students always have to do. He's like, it doesn't matter. I'm not even a student here anymore. And just left. And like, I remember just thinking about that, like just days after, and just getting mad all over again, to just feel like so disrespected. And I remember thinking like, why am I letting this get to me? Like, why am I letting this student's disrespectful behavior? Why am I taking this personally? Why am I thinking about this like days later and getting mad about it all over again? And it was like one of those lessons that's like, even as terrible as it is to like feel disrespected by a student or really anybody, when you have been respectful, like it is not worth it to let yourself get so upset about it. It's not fair to yourself, because most of their disrespectful behavior really has nothing to do with you. In my mind, I was like, what could I have done? What should I have done? And I was just replaying it over and over again in my head. And in the end, like there wasn't really anything different that I could have done or that I should have done. If it was a situation where maybe like, what was it that I had done with that student that made them feel disrespected? I should have like followed up kind of maybe earlier in the year. It's like, hey, I've been noticing some of this behavior, like what's going on? Like, you can't talk to me that way. Like, and I'm not going to talk to you that way. I'm not going to disrespect you. And we need to maintain this mutual relationship of respect and like having that kind of connection point. But I didn't really do that year. Kind of like that second half of the year when things were kind of just getting, especially because I didn't have him in my class either. I just kind of saw him on campus. But it was just one of those things like, I can't take this disrespect personally. I can't let it be something that eats away at me, that I start criticizing myself because I didn't handle it right. And I think that's a lesson that a lot of teachers need to hear, that like you can't let this sit with you. You can't let it like get in your mind or in your spirit and bring you down, because really it doesn't have anything to do with you, and you just need to let that, you need to let it stay at school. Think through how you can address it. Don't beat yourself up that it's happening though. And don't beat yourself up don't let yourself just get mad about it. And that was one of the biggest lessons that I learned with that situation. And so those are three different stories. Two of them from my early days. One from like kind of like several years ago that like, even though I'd kind of learned a little bit more about being a teacher, still found you find those different struggles in different ways throughout your career. But we have got about 5 minutes left, and what I want to do is every live stream, I give about $50 to a middle school STEM classroom because I want to support my fellow middle school STEM teachers. And I go to Donors Choose for this, and if anyone's ever here on the live stream and has a Donors Choose and is a middle school STEM teacher, I'll even open it up to other middle school teachers. They can either send it to me before the show or put it in the chat, and I'll consider it for the actual donation. But it's profits that I get from my business, from my YouTube channel, from my professional development, from my online courses. I always put aside a little bit to give back, and so that's where some of this money goes. And so the class that I want to give to today, I was looking a little bit this morning. Mrs. Thompson, who's in Utah. I am really big on a classroom economy. If you look at my video library and some of the stuff that I put out and classroom jobs, I love a classroom economy. And I love that this teacher, Ms. Thompson, is actually going to be doing a big auction, a big store for her kids. They're going to have class jobs and pay for things with their classroom money. And she wants to buy a bunch of really cool stuff that they can purchase with their classroom money. And so she's actually raised a lot, almost $500, and she only needs $75 to meet her goal. And so I want to actually go ahead and close out this one and help her meet her goal, because I am all for a classroom economy. I've reached out to companies and stuff about donations for classroom economies, and reached out to parents to see if they wanted to donate to a classroom economy. And so I want to pay it forward and also support other teachers doing this in their classroom. And so I want to check out now, Ms. Thompson. Let's go ahead and support your class store so you can get these really cool items for your classroom economy. Let's place the $74.82 donation. And I usually use a message, similar message to teachers, and then just modify it. Hey, Ms. Thompson, I'm a fellow middle school STEM teacher, and I have a live stream on my YouTube channel. Each live stream, I take a moment to donate to another middle school. I have been doing a class economy since 2014, and my kids love it as well. I really hope your kids enjoy the class store items. Keep up the great work! ! Post my message, and that is that. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you're in the chat, maybe you've just been watching, just maybe say where you're from, maybe what you teach, if you are a teacher. I do love to kind of at least connect. Part of this live stream is to be able to connect with people, and I appreciate you, Yue, coming, chatting, coming into the chat. But I try to connect with people. I like the live stream format. I don't get a ton of viewers at this time, and I know a lot more people end up watching the playback, but I like the live stream format as an opportunity to possibly just connect in real time, as you may have questions about what I'm doing in the classroom or stories that I am sharing. And so thank you so much for tuning in today, though. And I put a new video out every Tuesday, and then a follow-up live stream typically related to that video topic on Wednesdays as well. San Antonio, yes, I'm up here in Austin, so good to see another Texan here. So Y'all have a great rest of the week. Happy Waving Wednesday to you, and I really appreciate you tuning in. Music. Woo! I should have played the music before I faded out. That would have been smoother.